Do you feel that in a time when we are more connected than ever, we are drifting away from real human connection, especially to ourselves? I do. Hi, I'm Leticia Latino, and I want to invite you to join me and my very inspiring guests in exploring ways to reconnect to your essence, to your definite purpose, to what makes you tick. Are you ready? Hi there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Back to Basics. Our guest today is Jeanette Brown. She's the founder of Excellence and Presence Communications, an integrated PR and marketing agency. She has spent most of her life creating brand development strategies, all sorts of communication campaigns, and diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. She's also heavily involved in her community through a foundation that advocates for anti-gun violence solutions and conflict resolution for the youth and young adults. Hello there. How you doing?
Hello, Leticia. I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I think I probably messed up your Jeanette, right? Jeanette.
Yes, Jeanette.
I always tend to say Janet. Well,
Yeah.
Everybody knows my English is questionable.
No,
so.
I grew up in Bushwick, Brooklyn, which is a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. So it's fine, Jeanette.
You're used to us messing it up, right?
I like the accent. And
well, okay, that's good. So, tell me about, that's a great point to start. Tell me about that childhood of yours.
Wow. So I grew up in Bushwick, Brooklyn, and my family is from the Caribbean. And so my mom was from Trinidad, my dad from Jamaica, and growing up in Bushwick was an amazing experience. And it was a mix of cultures in the 80s, a mix of cultures. It was also Bushwick when people really didn't want to say that they were from Brooklyn because of the era in which I grew up. But I love the culture and experiences that I had there. I went to Catholic school. Most of my friends went to Catholic school. It was just kind of the thing to do from a cultural perspective. And but I mixed well with everyone. And so, like I said, predominantly my friends were of Hispanic, from a Hispanic background, Dominican, Puerto Rican, Mexican, Ecuadorian, just like a mix.
Yeah.
So it was amazing.
Well, I'm Venezuelan, so I'm going to say this right now. Trinidadians and Venezuelans, we get along really good because you're so close.
Yes, 12 miles. So where my grandparents, my mother grew up and my grandparents was 12 miles from Venezuela on the side of Trinidad where they're from.
Yes, yes. A lot of people don't realize it, but Venezuela, we have the Caribbean islands are so close, some of them, that we really, mix and blend very well.
Yes, it does. It does. It's amazing.
So growing up in this very multicultural environment, I'm sure it gave you a lot of perspective. Were there any dreams or any particular passions that were you showcasing in a young age that now you can tell, I was already very social as a kid. That's why I ended up in PR or something like that.
That is exactly it. And as I went through the questions that you provided me with, I kind of connected the dots of things that I already knew or aha moments along the way. But I was very social. Everyone knew me. It was my sister and I kind of growing up together, and she was more of the introvert. She stayed home with my mom, and I went and met friends and pretty much brought them all back home, and that's how they knew my sister and I.
That's good. You sound like a good sister to have.
Yes.
Stay home and let her do the work.
Yes, I was the younger one also, so it was interesting that I was more outgoing, but always making friends, and it's still a quality that I have today. I think I have an innate ability to connect positively with people. And it's something that has even been written in my reviews coming up in my career is that, I have able to connect positively with people. So it's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Sometimes I can relate to that. And sometimes people say, you're so good at keeping in touch. And it feels unfair because I say, yeah, but you make it sound like I'm making an effort.
Right.
And it feels unfair to take the compliment because to me, it's innate. I just want to talk to my friends. And I know for other people, it really takes effort to reach out. And that has, in my opinion, a different level of praise that they should get, when you're doing something that is hard for you.
All right,
but in my case, it never felt that way.
Right. But it's usually the people who it's difficult for them to do that when they see someone else do it, it's just like, wow, that's amazing. You're so
Yes.
good at that, because it's a challenge.
Yes, no, I totally see that. So as in your young years, is that how you what you studied? Like when you make a decision to go into a career or into a degree? Tell me about that.
So I honestly feel I stumbled to the things that I was supposed to. They as a child, I wanted to be a nurse, right? At first, I said police officer. I remember having a T-shirt as a child that said I wanted to be a police officer, and my sister's shirt said she wanted to be a nurse. And but eventually, I wanted to go into studying childhood education, and then I wanted to be a nurse again. So that is what I went to school for, was nursing. And along the way, things happened in my life that changed the course of the direction that I was going in. And I had to get a degree, but then I decided that, I stumbled into PR, and that's how I got into public relations. So finished high school, went away to college. That was something I knew I wanted to do. I'm like, I'm getting out of here. I want to go and explore the world. And that is like the social nature in me. And then when I got to college, I was studying nursing, and I got to chemistry and thought there was no way I'm getting through this 3-year course. And decided to go into visual studies. And a year and a half into school, I came home one holiday and my mother passed away.
Oh my
I came
God,
home for Christmas
abruptly.
break, and yeah, it was like 2 weeks. We were coming home for break, and I got home, and she passed away maybe a week and a half later, and it was totally unexpected. And I thought she was having she had a cold and just like maybe experiencing the flu. She was actually having a heart attack, and didn't realize the signs of what that looked like, and she ended up passing away.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry to
So
hear
so
that.
I ended up staying home.
Wow,
Yeah, it was
that's
definitely a
definitely.
difficult moment.
Mhm. I can
For
see
sure.
this. It's I have my mom still, luckily, but I know no matter how you try, because as they get older, you try to trick your
Hmm.
brain into you have to prepare that this is going to happen sooner
Yes.
or later. And
Yes.
but then you hear people that they lost their mom at an early age. First, of course, I feel
Yes.
super blessed, but I don't know, how did you cope with all that, going back home and then a week and a half later not having your mom around?
I don't think I coped with it for years. I think what I realized after she passed away was that life went on for everyone else. It was just like back to the regular scheduled program for everyone, and I found myself digging into the things that I was taught. Right, so I was going to school. She passed away 2 weeks later. I immediately went and signed up for community college because growing up, education was important in my family. So I was like, I have to go to school. I got to find a school that's going to take my credits, and it's something that I needed to accomplish. So I was mission driven on like the goals that I was told I was supposed to do as a child. And even though she had passed away, my way of moving through the world was staying focused on those goals despite what happened. So I really didn't deal with the emotions, and just continue to push through.
That's very brave, but I can sense how that's still a tough emotion to handle.
Yes, it is. It is very much so. But I definitely worked through a lot of that throughout the years. And so my mom passed away when she was 42, and I'm 42 now. And
Wow,
women
wow.
don't share their age, but for me, it was just like a moment that I'm just like, oh my gosh, what if I don't make it past 42? So I always felt like I had to, follow my dreams or goals or wherever life took me, have accomplishments, and kind of move through life in that way. So there was no more planning. It was more, okay, well, you need to get an education, you got to get a job. And it was all about survival.
Yeah, I definitely see what you say, the realization that life goes on. I've lost two of my best friends throughout. One very young at 17, the other one at 28, maybe.
Okay.
And that was for me the big realization as well, like how our life goes on. And even now, I'm 47 since you're disclosed. So
you look beautiful.
Oh,
I would have never known.
You too. But you know, I realize now how much more life I've had in comparison to my friend that died at 17,
Yes.
and how lucky I feel, and all that. And it feels unfair that life goes on, and because
Right.
we kept going, and that's definitely a hard concept to grasp.
It is. It is for
It is.
sure.
But you moved on and you have a very successful career. So, so you went to community college. How was your first, let's say, the start into PR and into the career you made?
So, so my start in PR was interesting because my friends were all, working at temp agencies through like summer jobs, and I knew that I needed to get a job, and I started temping while that summer before I went back to school. So I continued to temp part-time and then go to school. And then I ended up being offered a job at a PR agency at about the age of 20. So I still hadn't achieved my associate's or bachelor's degree, but I was hired as like administrative, support. And I got an opportunity to work at a PR agency. And I remember the woman who found me the job, she's like, "This is exciting." I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure." I had no idea what I was getting into. And wow. I ended up working at a company at the time. It was called Allen Taylor Communications. And it was one of the best things that I probably could have done, because working there taught me a lot. It put me on the career path I'm on today. And many of those people are very much my friends or people that I work with, and people who've continued to help me throughout my career in different ways. So they became my family.
That's very nice.
Yeah, extended family.
That's the goal. I always say I sound idealistic, but to me, too, my customers, we all have good ones and not so good ones. Right. But I always say that I strive for that family feeling. And I have to say, I'm very blessed. I have customers they're my friends, and we help each other. And sometimes they cannot award you the deal or cannot work, but it's always with such compassion and grace. And you don't have to fight over not getting the deal if you have a real relationship.
Agreed.
And that to me is the ultimate goal. So I'm happy that you consider those people your family.
Yes. What's interesting is in 2017, after I had my son, I was home for a while, and the Alan Taylor, who owned the agency that I worked for, who left a few years before I even left the agency, he sent me a message on LinkedIn, and he said, "I wrote a book, and you're included in it." I hadn't seen Alan probably since 2006. It's now 2017. I was like, "Me? What'd you write about me?" And he wrote a book about his start in PR and sports, and his experience creating an agency and some of the people he had remembered. And he included a line in there about me. And I thought, oh my goodness, you don't realize what sort of, and this is someone who has worked with legends all over the world, international stars. He's I'm just like, how did you remember me out of all of the people that you've worked with? And I felt really special. And it was a time in my life where I was not feeling the best about myself and career. And it was just something that's just like, Jeanette, it's not over. Right. You just don't realize how what you leave behind when you encounter people, even if you're not trying.
I'm a firm believer of that. But I have to ask this. Do you remember the line he shared?
He just mentioned, he talked about me being a pleasant person to work with, and that I had put myself through night school and continued to work and move through the ranks in the company. I was given an opportunity where everyone else who had come to the door had, who were practicing PR, they all had degrees. They went to school for journalism or some sort of communication degree. And I remember him telling me, "You don't need a degree for this. You just need to, you need to be a great communicator. You need to, have passion for it." And I did. And I
That's
found some
great.
great
That's
mentors
great.
there.
Just a few episodes ago, I interviewed someone that was saying that in the interviewing process, while he always, of course, welcomed people that had degrees, he never ruled out anybody because of not having the degree.
Right.
Because there's so many things that make the professional, and I mean, I'm in an interviewing process for technicians, for telecommunication technicians. I never been stood out so many times like that this week. I've been stood out at least 5 times from people that said yes to an interview.
Oh my goodness.
And it's crazy, and these are telecommunication technicians are in shortage. So we have 20,000, we need 40,000. So these people get offered
Wow.
jobs every day.
Wow.
But even then, to accept an interview and then not take it, right? And that says a lot about the person.
It does.
So I tell my team and say, oh, should we try? I say, no, that's the best filter you have. You don't want someone that doesn't show up to an interview, doesn't even write a note.
Right.
And those things you don't learn in college. Those things, they come with you and who you are as a person.
Yes.
Right. But I don't want to digress, but yeah.
No, I think it's all relative because I honestly, when I saw that line, something must have, there was another woman who hired me who's still a very close friend of mine today. And she was my supervisor at the time. And it was the connection with her. It was the connection with everyone else that I worked with. It was me being me and someone giving me a shot. And then all of a sudden, that being able to show up and be dedicated is what has brought me to where I am today. So, I'll remember them for a lifetime.
That's very, very, very exciting. And I'm sure it has a compound effect because I find that all these relationships that you build day by day, at the beginning, you have relationships, but when you've been for a long time in any industry, they really compound in a big way.
Yes. And you realize your network. And that is what I actually have in my bio on my website is the connections, being able to connect networks of people and clients or tapping into, if I'm not the expert, I'm always transparent. Like, hey, I've never done that before, but you know what? I think I may know someone who can help us or guide us or who I can put you in touch with, as opposed to thinking that I'm the expert at everything.
Yeah. I think that's a great approach. And I know that at some point in your career, you take that leap of faith that a lot of people that I like to think a lot of my audience, things like that, like they know they want to change course, they want to do something else, and they need that extra push to really say, let's do it. Because you, at some point you say, okay, I'm working for someone else, but I'm going to create my own agency. Right. Tell me about that.
So that was something that people had been telling me for years that I could do. I could create my own agency. I could have my own company. But the idea of that seemed so far-fetched. I thought about where I was sitting and sitting in terms of an office or a corporation and, that had multiple offices around the country or globally, and thinking, how would I create something like this big? And it wasn't until 2017 when I kind of sat back and realized that the skill set that I had, I could do it from my kitchen table, right? I could sit down and think about how to be resourceful or how to tap into my network and get the help that I needed or provide advice and realize, wow, you actually know a lot more. When people ask you questions, I can go on for hours about how I can help them or the things they need to do to achieve their goals. And for me, that was, someone had offered me an opportunity to sit on the panel. And I said, you know what, if you think I'm an expert to join a panel of other successful women, then I guess I too am successful.
Well, people were seeing it before you saw it. People were seeing that how successful you were before you opened the window of into yourself and a knowledge. No, and that's an important point because it's usually others that can get to see things that we are missing. Yes. And that's why the cliche thing about look within, look inside yourself, they tell you that it sounds like unimportant, but it really is not.
Yeah, right.
Did
And
becoming a mommy had anything to do with that? Because 2017, you say you had just given birth to your son, or
yes, yes, I
do you
did.
think that had anything came into
Well,
play?
well, yes. So my drive to survive and know that I still had to earn a living, and I had my son, and then I was home for a while, and then getting back into the groove of working full time. I remember being 5 months pregnant, traveling right all over, right, getting on planes and representing the clients with passion, and still doing a great job, and thinking to myself, how am I going to keep that up or get back into that with a small child at home? And I wanted to make sure that I was present. So I started consulting, and then eventually started my own company. But what was the underlying thing was driving me was survival, right? I need to earn money. I need to earn money so that I can survive. And that was the thing that had kicked in when I was 17 and my mother passed away. It's just like, I need a job. I have to finish school. So those are the things that I think have driven me. And but now, as time goes on, and it's 2021, and a pandemic is here, and I remember how I felt in 2017, and I think a lot of people may be feeling the same way today with the way the world has changed, right? It's definitely changed, and meaning, like, some people don't have their jobs or lost their jobs, or they've had to move, or major life changes that have happened when they thought they were going the course. They did everything right. They from A to Z, they completed it, and success was supposed to be at the end of it all. And then this unexpected thing takes place, and your life is just never the same again. And I was really happy that happened to me in 2017 when all of the as we mentioned about death before, all of those, life went on as usual for everyone else. Like it was regular day. They were back to business, and it was different for me. So I feel like I had a head start on getting adjusted to unexpected occasions or occurrences, and then kind of finding a way to get through it all.
Yeah, that definitely it's a blessing in disguise. I tell people that too, because as I mentioned before, I'm Venezuelan, and the company that my father founded, where I work, and he founded it 49 years ago yesterday, actually, is in Venezuela. And, we've had 20 years of COVID-like conditions because of the political environment in Venezuela. And so, it's been super challenging. So while I understand, I tell people, we in a way, we are lucky that there's countries out there that have circumstances that surround everybody that are really challenging. And we forget, because the US is a great country, and there's so much opportunity and all these things, but at the same time, we have it good here. And COVID made us, I think, made people also in the US realize that nothing is for sure. And that sometimes we do take for granted our circumstances. And this is why I think has been so shocking, especially for people here, because we are not used to live with that. So I think that was a great head start. And so you've had the agency then for 4 years.
Yes, for 4 years.
And what's exciting? Tell us about what you're doing that it's exciting.
Right. So I started in working on some alcohol brands and consulting for former clients, and then working on smaller companies and businesses, and book authors, restaurants, and things that I felt like I had connections to. So working in the last maybe 10 years of my career, I worked in alcohol, spirits, and representing different spirits brands. So the food, culinary world, and as well as bars and restaurants, all, we had to pitch the same people. The concepts were evergreen, and with some adjustment, of course, strategic adjustment, and also coming up with a creative way to showcase whatever it was that I was working on through unique cuisine, or the owner of a business is amazing and they have an interesting story, and their expression is through food. So I've done a lot of different things, and that is another thing that I feel really fortunate about, is that I worked my first almost 8 years in sports and lifestyle. And then I went into personal publicity and then working with people and talent and athletes and TV personalities, and then into the alcohol industry. So I feel really fortunate that I was able to cross multiple areas of PR and then also start in it when there wasn't a course of study. It was just like you had to just learn the skill of developing fun campaigns, engaging campaigns, and connecting with people is, to me, at the core of public relations. So I went from restaurants, alcohol brands, to doing some diversity, equity, and inclusion work from some of the experience I had with crisis communications, and then also working on mission-driven businesses and then nonprofit organizations. So some really exciting programs. Worked on a woman-led symphony orchestra, 63 person, 63 musician live orchestra performance that talked about the history of women and through since the 1800s. I've worked on a nonprofit organizations or for-profit organizations that are advocating for food, healthy food in schools for children. Also helped a bartender organization and spirits organization, integrate diversity, equity, and inclusion into their practices because the industry was calling for it. And it was at the height of the pandemic when things were changing, and the company was progressive enough to say, we want to make our organization more inclusive. And I was able to help them create a roadmap of how to do that. And it was a great experience. And I've continued to evolve from there.
Wow, it sounds exciting
Yes.
work. And and you mentioned diversity and inclusion and equity. And I mean, this is a time where these conversations at least are front and center pretty much. Every convention, every event I have. Also, I work in the telecommunications industry, which is the definition of a male-dominated industry. And so I feel it that people are recognizing those initiatives, and big companies are wanting to put programs to create more awareness about the issue. So I think you're going to have a lot of work.
Yes. And in addition to my personal experience, I'm also going to be taking a course to get a specific certification in that area as well. I've done a lot of work, and then personally as a Black woman growing up in an industry that was predominantly white, I have my own unique experiences that I think would definitely lend themselves to sharing with others, and I've learned a lot as well. So I just want to, the certificate, I think, just maybe another thing that I want to get under my belt, but I'm sure there's something for me to learn there as well, and it's exciting stuff. And I have an interesting perspective because I think that diverse people from diverse backgrounds should come together, and that is the recipe for success. Like, we all can't be from the same place or understand the same things. I know that I have strengths and weaknesses, and be able to lean on others in things that I don't know. So that's kind of the environment that I'd like to foster with clients and even in my own company.
I love it. And I know that you are a big advocate also for the young kids, and you tell me about the foundation you're involved with and the work they do.
Yes, I'm working with the Chris S. Owens Foundation. It was started by a childhood friend of mine who lost his son to gun violence. His son was murdered by a stray bullet while he was playing, and it's on a basketball court. And I think that he changed his life and started this organization, and to help conflict resolution, to help youth in the community. And it was a turning point for him. But at the time, I had no idea what even he was going through. And he spent the last 11 years creating a foundation that has helped youth, has a demonstrated track record. And he recently invited me to be a teaching artist in a lights, camera, action program. And I was like, really, me? And I became really excited. I was like, okay, I'm sure I can do it. And I just thought about myself as a mentor and in the corporate environment. And I was like, you know what, I can do this. And we are now teaching youth about film, television, entertainment. He handles the technical part because I'm sure I could still learn a few things about using even my cell phone camera. And I help with story development and how to, what it is that you want to put into a visual story to communicate a message, or what is that message, or being aware of, cultural sensitivities so that you are bringing people to you as opposed to turning them off because they don't understand how it is that you're communicating. So it's been exciting. And I really enjoy working with the children that who are at-risk youth, who I'm working with, and I realize that they're geniuses, and maybe someone just needs to connect with them in a unique way, and change the course of their lives, and that's what I hope to do in this effort.
Wow, that's great. I think that working with children and the youth, I'm also very passionate about, and how we can foster and plant ideas, way of thinking. I was just in the car yesterday. My son was getting irritated because the Bluetooth didn't connect. He's 10. And every time, every time my little girl is 6, and every time she does it, it works. Okay. But then my son has it and it doesn't work for whatever reason. He's like, and so he's kind of procrastinating. And I was telling him about Murphy's Law. And I say, Murphy's Law. And so I've talked to them so much about Murphy's Law. And then I have my little girl telling him, don't let Murphy into your head.
Oh, my goodness.
And I say, that's great, Emma. That's awesome. And these things you plant in them at this young age.
Yes.
Because I told him, don't let Murphy take over. Just calm down, keep trying. And then eventually he got it to work. And it's just such a shift in his behavior just by making him aware of how all these feelings were just overtaking him. Yes. And I see the same in so many young people that sometimes I interact with. And I recently did mentoring session. Well, not recently, right before the pandemic. And out of 45 little girls, high school girls that I spoke with, at least 40 wanted to be nurses. Really? I'm like, how can that be that 40 people out of 45 want to be
nurses?
And I said, this is something that somehow is being planted in their head. As it's a good job because it is and all that, but it's like the impact, as adults we have into the younger generation is huge. And I think sometimes we don't even realize what we're doing by implanting belief systems, labels that we have. We think it's all about transpassing these labels to them. And we are hurting our kids just by not allowing them to actually be raised free of all these preconceptions we bring.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And it's also why I decided to spend time with my son. I feel fortunate that I was able to do so, but there was nothing glamorous about it in terms of, there wasn't like money rolling in, and I was in a cushioned position. But I know that I knew that I needed to spend time with my son, as opposed to handing him off to someone or having someone come in and help, which I have now, someone who's come in and help. But the process of selection was very delicate for me because I know how impressionable children are, and the adults that are in their lives, how they kind of pass on their fears, their hopes, and even sometimes want children to do the things that they feel like they missed out on. Yep. And one of the things that I just wanted to get back to in terms of my own childhood when it comes to that is, as a first generation child born in the U.S. from immigrant parents, and my grandparents were also very instrumental in in my upbringing, and they were present. And by the time I was 17, they, as well as my mom, had passed away. But one of the things that they kept telling us about was, they didn't want us to have accents because they were from the Caribbean. They said, no, you're not going to be able to get a job, or no one's going to hire you. Like, everything was about fitting in and assimilating, right? And getting your foot into the door to get a job and get an education, and just it, like, all of the things that they felt and encountered when they came to this country. And they were both educated. My grandfather was like the equivalent to the school's chancellor in Trinidad. My grandmother was a nurse and a teacher, and she delivered half of my uncles and aunts, right? Oh, so, wow. But when she came here, it was a humbling experience, and she had to get her certification all over again. And the documents she came with, as a certified nurse and registered nurse, they didn't apply in the U.S. So they were all about fitting in and making sure that we were set up for success, and thought education and assimilation would take us there. As an adult, I felt like I had to bury a lot of who I was, and couldn't necessarily celebrate it. Where today I embrace my differences and know that that's the added value, right? Like, that's the added, that is the unique thing about me, in addition to all that I've already learned, right? It's like I said, I grew up around a lot of people who were Hispanic and from the Caribbean, and culturally we were all the same. And it was something that I felt like as a child, despite how horrible people thought Brooklyn was, there was a sense of community and music and celebrations. If I didn't understand the words, I still sang Spanish songs, and I still know them today by heart, right? But as I got older, I felt like I had to move away from all the things that made me who I was. And today, just so I can fit in and move up the ladder. And today, I want to teach children that they should embrace that. Like, that's the unique thing about them. And then that'll also take you through your life and allow you to stand out from the crowd, which is, everyone's like out of the box thinking, or how can you be different? We're all different, and fitting in is what you're taught sometimes. But I think if we embrace who we are naturally, we'll stumble upon where we're supposed to be in life.
That's very powerful. That reflection is, and I can relate because I'm first generation Venezuelan from Italian parents. So okay. I also always felt, in my own country, I felt she's the Italian, and then in Italy they are the Americans, and I never felt that I was one thing or the other. Right. And then I came to live in the States 25 years ago, so I was who knows what, So I always also kind of hid my story a little bit, like to try to level up. Yes. And it's a big realization when you realize, and some people are happy you do it, because if you highlight your uniqueness, there's no way, in certain circumstances, someone that speaks several languages, or someone that has a rich culture like yours and knows about Trinidadian, culture, and then Jamaican things. And I mean, that just makes you culturally savvier than maybe other people. And sometimes it's in the best interest of people that surround us that you don't highlight those things. Right. And so I think it's great to embrace uniqueness. And for what I can tell, you're very, inspirational. You have
thank you.
And I think you definitely, you are on the track to really helping others tell their story, because in PR also, I'm sure that's what, you do, that brand development is really about who the company is, and also who the people are behind the company.
Who they're trying to reach, what that story is that's going to inspire someone to purchase, to follow, to be a fan, to adore, and to even tell other people. And that is something that I know I'm really good at. I was going to say I know I'm really, really good at it.
Very nice. And it shows. It definitely shows.
Thank you.
So my last question is always the same. So there's no surprise factor there. But there is a surprise factor. I'm always interested to know, I mean, you're obviously passionate about connection and being with other people. In the times where the day is not as bright and you're having those days that we all have, like where you're like tired and you've had it, what do you do to connect with what makes you tick? Is there any activity? Is there anything that you do that you say, I could do this forever and I feel like at home?
It is play music and dance.
Mm-hmm. I
Play
love
music.
it.
Yes, because I think that there's something about sound and music, like just like your favorite playlist or a favorite song. And I've even found myself doing that these days. Like I get up and drop my son off, and he's singing in the car, and I'm like, yes. And I feel so good. It changes my mood instantly. And you don't think that it does, but if you put on a song that makes you happy or music that makes you happy, it changes your mood. And I love to dance. I don't care if anyone judges me because I'm the person on the dance floor. But it just makes me feel free, and it lifts my spirit. And I usually get a smile from other people and are able to get people to join me. Right.
Wow.
So it's contagious.
Well, we must be soul sisters, because I just told my kids again in the car, I drive them to school and they are my DJs. So I give them the phone, and that's why they don't need the Bluetooth. They put 2 songs each every morning. And I told them just the other day, they played this song that I really like, gets me in a great moment. I say, every time you feel sad, go look for the song that makes you happy. Wow. I just said this, I swear to God, 2 days ago. I say, look for the song that makes you happy and play it.
Yes.
And I told this to them the other day because I think it's a great strategy into changing just how the day is going. So we definitely have a similar technique there.
Yes. That's great. I can't wait until we can meet in person.
Absolutely.
Have a dance party.
Oh, I love that. I think my audience gets very jealous because at the end of every interview, I cannot wait for the pandemic to be over.
Right.
To start traveling again, really, because I made so many friends. Yes. Because I like to, after a conversation like this, I like to think that we are friends.
Absolutely. You can come to Brooklyn. You have a friend here.
I'm there. Don't invite too much. You don't know me too much yet. I make this happen. But I definitely look forward to the day when we meet in person. And I know this conversation will be very inspirational to everybody out there. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you as well for having me. It's been a great experience. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Back to Basics. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. If you haven't yet, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on Apple Podcast or any of your favorite streaming platforms. This is the best gift you can give us. Join me next week for another Back to Basics conversation. And if you want to find out about other exciting things I'm working on, visit LeticiaLatino.com. Thank you, and until the next time.